Hi, I'm Gary McCarthy, and I'm the host of Wearing the Badge here on Fox 32 Chicago. And I'm sure I'm not the only American citizen who's very concerned about everything that's going on in our country today. I want to try and peel back the onion here a little bit on what's going on and maybe point out some things that people haven't noticed or refuse to notice. But somebody's got to be the adult in the room, and we've got to slow this down. And I got to tell you, I'm okay with the mission of ICE and Border Control. I'm not necessarily okay with their methods. No municipal police department in this country could do the things that they're doing and not expect blowback. Wholesale shooting pepper balls into crowds. People have died from getting hit with pepper balls. Throwing people to the ground, using tear gas over and over and over again. So I think that ICE's policies, and certainly many of their tactics, are not so good. And you don't stand in front of vehicles, first of all. But second of all, most departments across the country have changed their policies regarding shooting into moving vehicles. Because if you happen to get that 1 in a million kill shot, you have a 2,000-pound bullet riding down the street, which is exactly what we saw in Minnesota. Poor tactics, poor policy, you shouldn't be shooting into vehicles, results in bad things. But I got to ask the question, where did it become fashionable to violate the law? When did we get the opportunity to decide which laws we want to obey? There's immigration laws. They're there for a reason. I'm a little bit sensitive to this. I lost my daughter to fentanyl. I don't know if she would be alive today if the border was closed, but I know she's not. I know where the fentanyl came from. 9/11. I got caught in both collapses at the World Trade Center. I dealt with the families afterward, and all the sorrow and recovering bodies was overwhelming. This is an important issue in our country. If you don't like the law, change the law. I don't understand this, and it's being fostered by our political leadership. You know, my dad was a World War II Marine, and it was his regiment that raised the American flag on Mount Suribachi. So seeing American flags upside down in protests, I find troubling, let's put it that way. I was always raised with a reverence for the flag. I was raised with a respect for law. My dad was also a police officer. My mom was a nurse. They were that greatest generation that Tom Brokaw talks about. They went through the Great Depression, then they went through World War II. They came home, raised families, middle-class families, moved on with their lives. Those are where my values come from. I just can't reconcile how we got to this point. I don't understand it. And it's not going to get better unless we get some adults in the room and start having some adult conversations. You cannot encourage people to resist the law. It is illegal in almost every state in this nation to resist arrest, even if it's an unlawful or an illegal arrest. You can get arrested for a robbery, get acquitted, and still get convicted of resisting arrest. It's in the law in virtually every state in this country. Yet we have elected officials, yet we have signs, resist, resist, resist. America has always been a welcoming country, but there has to be process. You can't just walk into a country and say, I'm here, and expect that it's not going to be problematic at some point. And the solution that I see, the middle ground that we can work on here, is if you want to be a sanctuary city like Chicago, if you want to be a sanctuary city like Minneapolis, do so. But there's no reason to not respect and execute immigration detainers when people are arrested. By not doing that, we're forcing ICE and Border Patrol to go out and do the things that they're doing, which is causing much of these problems right here. Yet we've got judges who facilitate that, like happened up in Milwaukee. The collateral damage is because we're not following process, grabbing the wrong people, shootings into cars, separating families, all the things that we're complaining about could be handled by very simply enforcing the retainers. They're in custody, keep them in custody, give them to a different agency, and we can provide for the public safety with the safe transfer of those individuals and stop what's happening on our streets. And I've got to tell you something. If I was the superintendent of police here in Chicago and Rahm Emanuel told me not to back up another law enforcement agency or another law enforcement officer who needed help, I would disregard that direction and deal with the circumstances after the fact. This is outrageous that we have law enforcement now not helping out law enforcement. It starts by having rational conversations. We've got to get some adults in the room, put our heads together, and you know what? Let's stop being political. Let's stop being Republicans or Democrats. Let's all be moderates for once and see if we can get something done.